Today, the WNBA officials, the referees last night, they were egregious. We have a dude, number 42, Rich Jelly Bean, or
There is a moment in this clip that should not be possible. A professional basketball official standing 6.5 feet from the play watches Caitlin Clark drive toward the basket, watches Breanna Stewart's hand connect with Clark's face, watches Clark grab her nose and stagger, and does absolutely nothing. No whistle, no huddle, no review. Play on. And that single moment, that silence where a whistle should have been, is what lit the internet on fire. Not just because of the contact, but because of what that silence has started to mean. Because here is the thing, this is not the first time. It is not the second time. It is not even close to the 10th time. And that is exactly why this particular clip spread faster than almost anything the WNBA has produced in years. Fans were not just reacting to a hand hitting a face, they were reacting to a feeling they have carried through 2 full seasons, that something about how Caitlin Clark gets officiated is fundamentally broken, and that nobody with the power to fix it seems willing to act until the whole world is already watching. That feeling has a history, and once you understand that history, the Stewart play stops being a debate about one missed call and starts being a referendum on whether this league is capable of protecting the player who saved it. Let's start with what actually happened, because the details matter more than people realize. Clark drives baseline, goes up for the layup, and Stewart comes from the weak side to contest. Stewart gets a piece of the ball, or something close to it, and her follow-through catches Clark directly across the face. Clark comes down holding her nose. The official nearest to the play, positioned with arguably the clearest angle in the building, lets it go. The crew does not gather. Nobody calls for a review. The broadcast shows the angle. The crowd reacts, and still nothing. Now, the defense that immediately surfaced online was that Stewart touched the ball first, which makes any contact after that incidental. That argument sounds clean until you actually examine it. Yes, a defender can make a legitimate play on the ball. Yes, a block does not automatically become a foul just because bodies collide afterward. But here is what that defense skips entirely. Contact to the face and head carries a different standard in basketball. It is not just about who touched the ball first, it's about whether the follow-through created unnecessary or dangerous contact above the shoulders. And when a player comes down grabbing her face, the crew is supposed to at least ask the question. They are supposed to huddle. They are supposed to look at it. What fans cannot get past is not that the call went against Clark. What they cannot get past is that the question was never even asked. That distinction matters enormously. Nobody is asking referees to be perfect. Missed calls happen in every league, every sport, every single night. What fans are asking is for the system to show curiosity. Even a review that ends with common foul or no call stands would send a message that the officials took the contact seriously. Instead, the no call created a vacuum, and in sports, those vacuums fill instantly. With theories, with frustration, with the very pattern arguments that make leagues look incompetent on the national stage. But the part of this story that people are angrier about than the actual missed call is what happened on the Indiana Fever sideline, or more accurately, what did not happen. Stephanie White, the head coach of a team that has Caitlin Clark as its franchise centerpiece, the most watched player in the history of this league, did not challenge the play, did not visibly react in a way that the broadcast caught, did not storm toward the officials demanding answers. She stood there. And for fans who have been watching Clark absorb contact all season without institutional backup, that silence was almost worse than the no call itself. To be fair about this, coaching is complicated in real time. White is tracking matchups, substitutions, foul counts, the shot clock, the next defensive possession, all at once. It is entirely possible she did not have a full read on the contact in the moment. Coaches miss things. That is human. But here is the contrast fans keep bringing up, and it is a legitimate one. Earlier in the season, White burned a challenge on a Michaela Timberson moving screen in the first 2 minutes of a game. A moving screen in the opening minutes. She challenged that quickly enough that it barely registered. Then Clark takes a hand to the face and goes down holding her nose, and the sideline looks like it is watching a different sport. That comparison is the emotional fuel of this argument. It is not just the ref missed it. It is the ref missed it and nobody on Clark's own bench seemed to think it was worth a fight. And that matters for a specific reason that goes beyond one game. Caitlin Clark is not just another guard in Indiana's rotation. She is the reason the Indiana Fever went from a franchise people forgot existed to the most watched team in the league. She is the reason arenas around the WNBA sell out months in advance. She is the reason national television partners are paying attention, the reason casual fans who had never watched a minute of women's basketball are suddenly invested. When a player at that level takes contact to the face and her own sideline appears passive, fans do not read it as restraint, they read it as abandonment. And that read, fair or not, is spreading. Here is where it becomes impossible to dismiss this as one bad night for the officiating crew. Because the moment you pull back and look at the full timeline, the pattern argument stops being a theory and starts being a documented series of events. Go back to May 2024, Clark's first professional game in New York. Breanna Stewart plants a hard screen, legal but brutal, and Clark, running full speed, never sees it coming. She hits the floor, the play is waved off. Fans call it a welcome to the league moment and move on. 2 days later, Clark is bumped after a made three. Double technicals are issued. She tells reporters, "I feel like I'm getting hammered." That quote is from her first week as a professional. Then comes June 2024, the hit that truly lit everything on fire. Chennedy Carter walks up to Clark during a dead ball inbound, no basketball reason, no contest being made, and delivers a hard shoulder hip check that puts Clark on the floor. The officials call a common foul, not a flagrant, a common foul for what looked to nearly every person watching like a targeted off-ball hit on the most famous player in the sport. The fallout from that play alone generated more debate than most WNBA Finals games, and the officiating crew's response was treated as a quiet signal about how physical contact involving Clark would be managed. Fast forward to 2025. Natasha Cloud defends Clark at the end of a game Indiana trails by 2. Cloud pushes her shoulder into Clark hard enough to knock the ball loose. No whistle, game over. Fever lose. Clark immediately turns to the officials and begins arguing. She is visibly furious. Sophie Cunningham storms over to back her up, and the image of Clark standing there screaming at officials who are already walking away having just cost her team a game with a no call goes viral in minutes. Reports later confirmed that Clark told officials after the game, "I got a technical for clapping." That is not hyperbole. She received her 5th technical foul of that season for a reaction that on video looked like frustration, not aggression. 5 technicals for the player who is supposed to be the face of this league. Then 2026 brings the Alyssa Thomas incident, and this is where the story stops being about bad officiating and starts being about institutional failure at the highest level. On June 24, 2026, during a loose ball sequence against the Phoenix Mercury, Alyssa Thomas makes contact with Clark's throat, not her shoulder, not her chest, her throat. Officials review the play in real time and decline to assess a flagrant foul. The game moves on. Clark is visibly shaken. Stephanie White goes to the post-game podium and delivers a statement that is worth quoting because of how direct it is. She calls what happened to Clark absolutely egregious and utterly disrespectful, says the officiating was absolutely unacceptable, and describes Clark as a generational talent and WNBA superstar who deserved protection that she did not receive.
The next day, the league upgrades the play to a flagrant 2.
suspends Thomas for 1 game and issues a fine. Case closed, right? Accountability delivered. The system worked. Except that is not what happened. Multiple sources reported to Sports Business Journal that WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert did not arrive at that suspension on her own. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver reportedly had to personally pressure Engelbert to act. Silver, who runs an entirely separate league, had to make a call to push the WNBA to suspend a player who punched another player in the throat. The fan reaction to that report was immediate and brutal. "She had to be told to do that," was one of the milder responses. Others called for Engelbert's resignation outright. And the reason the backlash was so sharp is not simply that the process was messy. It is what the process revealed, that left to its own judgment, the league's leadership may not have acted at all. That is not a ref missing a call in real time. That is an institution failing a player in slow motion, with time to think, with video evidence, with the whole sports world watching, and choosing, until outside pressure arrived, to do nothing. Now here is the part that should genuinely disturb anyone who cares about this league as a business. Because at the same 2025 All-Star Weekend, where Adam Silver's involvement would later become relevant, Commissioner Engelbert stood up and made a public commitment. She acknowledged that officiating had become one of the WNBA's biggest problems. She announced an officiating task force, coaches, executives, officials, assembled specifically to address concerns over excessive physicality and inconsistency. The league hired Eric Bruton as a new referee performance and development advisor. There were promises about freedom of movement being emphasized, about protecting players at the point of attack, about raising the standard of how the game was called. 2 months into the 2026 season, Stephanie White is standing at a podium calling the officiating absolutely egregious. Caitlin Clark is calling for full-time professional referees, not as a luxury, but as the bare minimum needed to fix a product that is embarrassing itself on national television. And the Chicago Sky are being informed after a June game that 3 critical calls were incorrect, not 1, 3 in a single game. Meanwhile, in another fever game, officials failed to notice that Kelsey Mitchell had fouled out and allowed play to continue before Indiana could substitute her. USA Network analyst Megan McPeak said on the broadcast, "This should never happen." WNBA legend Tamika Catchings echoed it. When the legends and the broadcasters and the coaches are all saying the same thing, the task force stopped being a solution and became a punchline. The question that hangs over all of this is simple and uncomfortable. If the summit happened, if the promises were made, if the new hire was announced, and the 2026 season looks exactly like the 2025 season, what exactly did any of it accomplish? And more importantly, who is being held accountable for the answer being nothing? There is a psychological dimension to this story that does not get discussed enough, and it is one of the most damaging parts of the whole cycle. Think about what it actually feels like to be Caitlin Clark right now. She drives to the basket knowing she is going to take contact. She's taken contact on almost every significant drive of her career. She absorbs it, keeps going, and then looks up expecting the whistle that any other star in any other league would receive. And repeatedly, the whistle does not come. What that does to a player, especially a young player still figuring out how to manage the professional game, is significant. A player who believes she will not get the benefit of the call starts adjusting. She starts rushing drives rather than drawing contact. She starts forcing shots rather than going to the line. She starts arguing with officials earlier than she should because waiting has not worked. And then the arguing becomes the story. She gets a technical foul, and now instead of talking about the missed call that started the whole sequence, the conversation becomes about Clark's attitude, Clark's composure, Clark's technicals. The original injustice gets buried under the reaction to it. That is a cycle that is almost impossible to escape once it starts. And right now, for Caitlin Clark, it's been running for 2 full years. She told the league publicly that she wants full-time referees.
That's not a complaint. That's a structural solution from a player who has watched part-time officiating produce embarrassing results game after game. When the league's most important player is offering specific, reasonable, professional solutions to an officiating crisis, and the league's response is a task force that changes nothing, that tells you something about where the priorities actually are.
And this brings us to the contradiction that nobody in the WNBA office seems willing to say out loud. The league is using Caitlin Clark. That is not a criticism. It is a business reality. She sells out arenas that were averaging a few thousand fans before she arrived. She generates television ratings that have reshaped media deals. She creates national conversations that put the WNBA on platforms and front pages that the sport had never reached. Every clip of her hitting a deep three, every highlight from a comeback win, every moment of her competing at an elite level, the league benefits from all of it. The WNBA has been lifted by Clark in ways that will take years to fully measure. But that spotlight comes with a standard. You cannot market a player as your franchise face, sell tickets around her name, build media packages on her presence, and then shrug when her face gets hit and the whistle stays silent. You cannot promote the drama of her rivalries and then act surprised when every hard foul becomes a national story. You cannot cash in on the attention she brings and then manage the officiating around her like it is a routine back-office matter. The audience that follows Clark is not a traditional WNBA audience that grew up understanding the nuances of the game. It is a massive casual audience, people who started watching because of her, people who follow her on social media, people who might never have tuned in otherwise. And when that audience sees her take a hand to the face with no whistle, they do not think that was a tough no call in a fast-paced game. They think the league does not care about its own star. Once that idea takes hold, and it has already taken hold with enormous portions of Clark's fan base, the league is not defending one missed whistle anymore. It is defending trust, and trust, once it goes, does not come back because of a press release. The counter-argument deserves to be addressed because it is real and it is worth taking seriously. Not every hard screen is a dirty play. Not every body contact moment is a targeted attack. Basketball is physical. Elite offensive players have always been hunted by physical defenses. Stars get grabbed, bumped, pressured, and tested. That is how opponents try to take them out of their rhythm. Caitlin Clark is not the first elite guard to face that treatment, and there are fans who believe the outrage around her gets manufactured, amplified, and weaponized in ways that are not entirely fair to the game or to the players who defend her. That is a legitimate point. Sometimes the crowd goes too far. Sometimes a routine basketball play gets treated like a conspiracy. Sometimes the internet builds a case out of freeze frames that look worse than the real-time play. And not every no call is evidence of a broken system. There are nights where officiating is difficult, the game moves fast, and human beings in real time genuinely miss things they would catch in slow motion. But, and this is the part that matters, none of that counter-argument explains away the Stewart play. None of it explains why a player can grab her face, go to the floor, react in real time to impact above her shoulders, and still not trigger even a moment of official curiosity. None of it explains why the WNBA needed external pressure to suspend someone for a fist to another player's throat. None of it explains why a task force assembled specifically to fix this problem has produced no visible results 2 months into the season it was supposed to transform. The fans who defend Clark are not imagining a pattern. The pattern is documented. The incidents are on video. The post-game statements from coaches are on record. The Sports Business Journal reporting about Adam Silver's involvement is sourced. At some point, the volume and the consistency of the evidence stops being fan outrage and starts being a legitimate institutional problem that the league has failed to solve.
So here is where everything lands, and it is an uncomfortable place. The WNBA is at an inflection point that it did not choose and cannot ignore. Caitlin Clark changed what this league looks like from the outside. The audiences are bigger, the stakes are higher, the The scrutiny is more intense and more national than anything this sport has faced in a generation. That is almost entirely because of one player, and that player is going to the rim, absorbing contact above the shoulders, grabbing her face on the way down, and looking back at officials who have already moved on. Her coach is standing on the sideline in moments where fans believe a fight should be happening. Her commissioner had to be told by a man who runs a different league to suspend someone who put a fist into her throat. Her task force produced a press release and no results, and she herself, the player, the franchise, the reason the ratings exist, had to stand at a podium and call for full-time referees just to get anyone to acknowledge the most obvious structural problem the sport has. The image that stays with people is not the explanation. It is not the rule book definition of incidental contact. It is not the defense that the ball was touched first. The image that stays is Clark holding her face while the game moves on without her. That image has now repeated itself enough times that it has become its own argument, and the WNBA is running out of time to offer a better one. Because eventually, a generation of fans who found this sport through Caitlin Clark will decide whether they trust the institution they found it in. And right now, that institution is giving them very little reason to answer yes. Was this just another missed call in a fast game? Or is this a league that has not figured out what it owes the player who gave it its biggest moment? Drop that question in the comments, because this one does not have a clean answer, but it absolutely has to be asked.